My name is Clas Svahn and I'm chairman of UFO Sweden and a member of the board of Clas for UFO Research. I'm here on Bufora's conference to give a speech about AFU and the ghost rockets. I mean, if you look at the UFOs from the 1890s, it started off modern era, 1890s. It started off in Estonia and the Baltic area as balloons, as spy balloons from Russia. They thought it was. And then in 1997, those Zeppelin things over the United States. But they didn't see any bodies of those aircraft. They only saw the lights from them. And they built the other around the lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened in England, of course.
Yes,
in the First World War.
Yes, early 1900s.
That's right. Yeah.
And then, of course, the ghost fly in Sweden and Norway and Finland in the 1930s.
And of course, there's also the relationship then with ghost aircraft. The aircraft that
the ghost flyer was an aircraft.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, the ghost flyers.
Yeah.
1930s, they were aircraft. There were specks of light. There were lights flying in the sky. I interviewed people out chasing them.
Okay.
And they were trying to shoot them down with ordinary rifles. The Swedish aircraft they were chasing, they crashed. But the ghost flyers, they just flew on in very bad weather. And most of those observations were really misidentifications of Venus and planets and whatever. But there were some interesting stories as well. Probably German aircraft coming from outside the coast of Norway, catapulted from the ship. And then the Foo Fighters, of course, which were interpreted as a weapon. And then the bombs, the ghost rockets, the modified version of the V-bombs. And then the flying saucers.
Well, now this is what I wonder. I wonder if the ghost rockets are apparitions or visions or something that's mimicking the V-bomb technology at the time.
Yeah.
Because people were very much terrified of V-bombs dropping and bombing, and you couldn't hear them, couldn't see them, or if you could see them, you couldn't hear, something like that.
Yeah, but they were not terrified in Sweden, and not in 1946.
Right. Well, the war had finished by then.
Yeah, but they were not... some crashed in Sweden, of course. They were annoying, but nobody got killed or injured.
And what was the relationship between Sweden and Russia like at the time?
Well, it was quite hard at that time, I should say. Beginning to be, at least. Not very, very good, no.
Were there plans, do you know, of the Soviet Union ever going to invade Sweden and Finland?
Yeah.
They were?
Yeah, they were. Had such plans. But in 1946, everyone was licking their wounds, and the Russians were moving the V-bombs from the Baltic area and from North Germany inside into Russia.
Yeah.
They were not conducting any experiments, really.
So ghost rockets are not Soviet technology at the time?
No, they are not.
And that's something that can be ruled out straight away?
Yes, for sure. But we were sending aircraft with listening devices to the Baltic area, trying to find out if there were some signals that were steering the ghost rockets.
Yeah.
But they had to stop those flights because the Russians didn't like it.
Right. Okay. And there's one question that was asked today, which I believe was very, very interesting. Why lakes?
Yeah, why lakes? One thing is that people are living around lakes. Most people are living, because it's an open area, you can see things happening around the lake.
Okay.
If you're living out in the woods, you don't see a thing that crashes 100 meters away from you, but you should hear it, of course.
So you get clusters of UFO reports around lakes, then?
Yeah, you get at least more reports from open areas where you can see things.
Yeah.
It's easy as that. You don't see it in cities because the buildings are in front of you. But why lakes? It may be that the ghost rockets were sent into the lakes because they were putting something into them. Mm-hmm. Some device that may be used by some foreign country in a later event when they are invading, whatever. Because in the early 1970s, I didn't tell you about this because I would have been speaking for another hour, but two different, very secret operations at the Norwegian border, Operation Argus and Operation Da Capo, that the military had their most sophisticated radar equipment put out into the woods near the border They had spies, a network of spies across the border. They had contact with the Norwegian military and the police, because there were flights of unknown and unnumbered aircraft flying without lights in dark, and ghost rockets as well. I interviewed a Swedish helicopter pilot who was put on standby 24 hours, and he got a call to go for an object coming from Norway. So he told me he went up with his helicopter together with his co-pilot. It was moonlight, it was snow, it was very good sightings. So when he approached the area where these objects were heading, he was flying 20 meters above the treetops. And it tells me then this cigar comes underneath the helicopter, going under the helicopter like this and up. You could see it coming up because of the moonlight. And it was a missile, but no wings, no exhaust flames, nothing.
Wow.
They landed and reported this.
Yes. And what did the authorities do in response to that then? Did they just...
This is still a secret operation. We haven't been able to find the paperwork, because the man who led the operation, who is dead now, but I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and he told on tape for the first time exactly what happened from his point of view. He told me that he went up to Stockholm to meet with the military authorities and the highest police chief in Stockholm to report to them. When he came back, the day after, he got a telephone call. Stop it. The whole operation was stopped. This may be because they knew what it was. Probably this could have been some NATO thing.
Okay.
They didn't want to get in trouble with NATO. Maybe this was something that...
Do you think it might have been... I mean, what year are we talking about? 1970s?
73, 4.
Was the cruise missile being developed then, or...?
They were not very advanced in any respect, so... It's hard to tell, really. It could be some sort of cruise missile, early one. But why fly it over Sweden? Well, who knows?
Who knows?
Interesting thing that I caught when you were talking about the actual objects coming down was that one of them followed power lines, and a few of them curved round. Another one hovered a bit and then dropped. You know, they all had some kind of, not intelligence behind, but a way, you know, almost like they were programmed, or they were following a pattern or something. Can you shed any more light on that? Or?
For sure, it's some sort of intelligence behind them. Somebody is flying them from somewhere. In 1946, the military speculated they must be TV monitored. It's in their reports. They were thinking in that direction. Somebody sitting somewhere with a TV camera on board, steering them, joystick. Yeah,
wow.
A little futuristic for 1946, you could think, but
definitely.
But when they didn't find anything, I mean, it should be some part of the fuselage or the motor or whatever. I think they scrapped that idea, and they got quite annoyed that they didn't find anything. People sent in about 30 or 40 samples of ghost rockets that were analyzed by the military, but there were nothing to do with the ghost rockets, really.
And you went on, you headed an expedition. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, we'd been planning this for 1.5 years, trying to find a ghost rocket that crashed, or I should say it landed, on a lake called Namajärvi in the very, very north of Sweden, on the 31st of July 1980. And two persons, Bo and Liz Berg, were out walking, hiking, when they saw this object coming towards them, flying over them, going down to the lake and turning around, going towards them again, landing with a splash, sinking, and bubbles are coming up. So we thought this is a very good observation, because there are two very, very good observers, very weird, 100%. And they have very much to lose to tell this story. They went with us. They have very much to lose just coming with us if we don't find anything.
Yeah, of course.
So we trust them 100%. And it didn't crash. It landed. It should be intact if it's still there. We have so many other places to go and look, because more easily accessible cases. But this is the hardest one. We have to hike out in the woods for hours, and we have to fly in things with helicopter, and we were living in tents for 5 days and things like that.
And this was completely blogged and recorded as you went?
Yes, we blogged everything, we Twittered, we Facebooked. We had 3 different live casts with TV casts from the lake, telling what exactly we were doing, what was happening all the time. And about 8,000 people followed all this all the time. So it was an interest.
Were you expecting to find something, or were you just hoping to find something?
I was hoping to be surprised, and we will go back again.
How deep is the lake?
Very shallow, 3 meters, 4 meters.
That's all?
Yeah.
So you can feel the bottom. And how soft is the bottom?
Very soft.
So if something heavy was to sink, would it sink how deep? Would it sink 20 feet or...?
Well, it would sink 4 meters, probably.
So with equipment you'd be able to detect something?
Yes, we need another sort of metal detector called magnetometer. We need that one.
One thing I don't know about is, are there any reports of people seeing humanoids at the time of the sighting of the ghost rocket?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I can answer it in 2 ways, yes and no. In the overall picture, no. Not a single person did see any creatures or humanoids or whatever together with the ghost rockets. There were not a single speculation about they coming from outer space, not a single one. But in 1946, on May the 18th, a man in the southwest of Sweden later reported to have been meeting a landed flying saucer in the woods outside a city called Ängelholm. He saw the personnel around it. They were repairing some windows that had been broken. They were burying some dead persons from this craft, burying them. They were also throwing out some stuff through a wall of light that was surrounding this landed flying saucer. The next day he found those things and brought them back home. He had dreams when he was taken aboard, meeting the commander, giving the explanation to why they had landed there. He was traveling with them a couple of times after that. He got information that he used to start an industry, which later on went out to be £1 million industry.
Wow.
So that's the side story. I have written a book 320 pages long about his experience, so it's hard to summarize it really. But I have my doubts.
Okay.
But that happened in 1946, maybe.
Okay.
What's the name of the book?
Mötet I gläntan, meeting in the clearing. It was in the clearing in the woods that he met them. It's quite a good read, but you cannot buy it anymore. It's out of print since many years. And not here, I presume.
But AFU have a copy,
I
don't
think
they?
so, yeah, maybe. I hope so.
Just to talk about AFU, actually, can you tell us about your archives?
Well, the AFU started in 1973 as just a bookshelf in a small apartment in Södertälje, a small city south of Stockholm. A couple of people decided that it was time to collect information in one place to make available for the future and to use as a researcher now. And since then we have expanded to 450 square meters of premises now, with 15 people working there every day, scanning, cataloging, making things available, putting articles nicely on a paper. I mean, everything you must do to keep the paperwork going.
And what do you have in the archives?
If I say everything and anything, I think that will cover it. We have thousands and thousands of reports from all over the world, case files, from Britain, from Sweden, from Russia, from Denmark, from Norway, from Finland, and so on. We also have tape recordings with interviews with witnesses. We have radio programs, we have recordings of TV programs from all around the world. We have blue book files on microfilm. We have reel-to-reel tapes from the 1950s with George Adamski, the old contactee era, with every single one, original ones. We also have pictures, lots of pictures, paintings, magazines, thousands and thousands of magazines, 24,000 books in many, many languages, posters, paraphernalia, artifacts that people have found and thought was from a flying saucer. Well, if there is something out there connected to this area, we keep it. But we are not anymore just a UFO archives. We are a Fortean archives. We are now an archive with lots of information about poltergeists, ghosts, folklore, sea monsters, everything is called the unknown.
Do you have quite a large number of undergraduate students from the university coming to use the archive as a resource?
Really, many of them are contacting us because they are writing theses on different levels. Many people investigating religious phenomena are coming to us.
And folklore
for sure. We work quite closely with the folklore department at the university in Sweden.
And how can people get hold of this archive material if they're, say, on the other side of the world?
Yeah, well, it's just a part on the other side of the world. But, you can access it through our website, afu.se. Only partly, of course. It's lists. You can find lists of our book collection, magazine collection, articles and things like that. But we are now building a new website with databases. So I hope in the next year we will start publishing databases with material that you can access PDF files from. That's our goal. And we will also, in the future, publish our picture archives that way. We have so many good plans, but it takes a while to do it.
Any organisation needs funding,
yeah.
And this is not a professional organisation. So how do you support yourselves? How does the organisation work?
We are supported. UFO Sweden is the research organisation. AFU is the archive.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. We have split it because we don't want, if we are folding, we are not wanting AFU to fold. So it's so different branches. UFO Sweden is funded by the members, subscriptions and member fees. That's it. Yeah. AFU is funded by sponsors. 50 people around the world, mostly from Sweden, Norway, some from Denmark, and some abroad, are putting in a certain amount of money every month. I put £50 a month there, and some time. And that keeps us running when it comes to rents, electricity and the telephone. Of course, the people we have now working for us are giving us money through the unemployment agency because they are giving us money for keeping them there. So right now we can use the money from the unemployment agency to buy computers, scanners and make decent working places for them. We also give them bonuses at Christmas. We have some tournaments, golf tournaments. I think we are a very good employer in many respects, very much better than many other that keeps unemployed people working.
I think the UK has a few lessons to learn from this because I think people who are unemployed have an opportunity to not just learn about the subject but to develop some skills they may never had beforehand, and that will help them find work. There's an opportunity. Yeah. I think that's excellent. I really do admire both the archive and the research part of your organisation. I think it's tremendous. As an investigator myself, if I wanted to access, say, a particular article that was published in the proceedings, say, from 1993, and I know you had a copy, because I can't just visit Sweden.
You can email us.
And I would be able to acquire a copy.
Yeah, we will send a PDF to you.
Would that come with a cost as well? Because that's another way of generating. No, we do this for free. We do sometimes when we're sending postage, real mails. Yeah. We must have some money back to us. But that's the only occasion, really. We don't take money for the work we do. We don't do that.
You do a newsletter. You do a pamphlet, a magazine. Yeah. Is it available in different languages, or?
We do 3 different magazines. We're doing one that is called UFO Aktuellt, which is a glossy magazine. It's for the members, but it's also sold out in certain venues. We also make another magazine called Report News, It's all about reports and UFO Sweden as an organization. It's for our investigators and of course the members. Not very glossy, but it's printed.
Yeah, of course.
And the third one, AFU newsletter, which is going out on the internet now. We have stopped publishing it in paper form, but that is in English. That is the only one that's in English.
Is the archive? I would think that your archive is the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So
By far, I should say.
because you have so many places that hold the archive, how many buildings are there now that stores this information?
It's 100 meters on the same street, 10 premises. So you have to walk through. If it's raining, it's a little difficult. You don't move things. But Anders Lilligren, who is heading the archives on a daily basis, he finds it's quite okay to take a walk sometimes. But he really wants, as I want, one building.
Yes.
But it's much more expensive to have 450 square meters in one building than in 10 different.
I see.
It is. But we just recently acquired the first 2 above ground level. And they are the working places where people are sitting.
Right.
Yeah. But we are looking for a new one all the time. I brought back 500,000 newspaper clippings from the Fortean Times, from the Charles Fort Institute. We are now scanning them.
And you'll be keeping a copy as well for the archive.
Yeah.
So everything you copy, you also have a duplicate in the archive.
We also keep, every time we get something, we keep the original and we try to scan it. But we are way behind on scanning, of course, because so much is pouring in. When we helped Contact International, they wanted their files back. So we scanned them and they got a hard drive from us and their files back. So we can do that. But we're not really fond of bringing things back, because losing control of it, it's in a cellar somewhere, and someday it's flooded, or somebody is dying, and everything is thrown away. We are not possessive, it's not that I'm saying, but we are very keen on keeping the originals as far as we can.
In one place.
Yeah.
Well, just watching it on the little video clips was absolutely fantastic, the amount of stuff that's there. And it's all so well organised. I'm a librarian as well, so just seeing it in good order was making me very happy.
And you also, the organisation has this really good relationship, a rather unique relationship with the authorities and the military. Yeah. How easy was it to establish those relationships?
It's been a long process, really. It started in the 1970s first, but during the 1980s we started to get very, very good contact with the head of the UFO desk. And I started to go there, to visit them as often as I could, and I was sharing information, not giving them reports, but sharing information with them. So we could help each other.
Yeah.
And when that man went into retirement, he left the ball to the next one and introduced me.
Okay.
And that's the way it's been all the time.
So the relationship was established quite early on and then maintained through each new member of staff.
Because they have really liked what we have been doing. Yeah. They have been seeing a value in what we are doing. And we also have other contacts which I cannot tell you about. I must kill you afterwards. But
I can appreciate that.
But we can get information that nobody else can get.
You get like recordings from air traffic control. Mm-hmm. I've tried to get access to things like that in Britain. Yeah. And it's been very, very difficult. But in the 1990s, this is when we had a lot of UFO investigators representing different organisations trying to tap into the same resource, and it doesn't work. But I think it becomes more effective when there's one umbrella organisation, one big organisation, and one individual maintaining a good relationship.
It's very much up to the person, to the chemistry between the persons. And I think if I know something, that's the one thing I'm good at. Yeah. To meet with people and to make things happen. I met with, I think, soon every single UFO researcher here in Britain, and some of them are like cats and dogs. Yeah. But we can meet with them. I have no problem with them, and they have no problem with me. So I think that's the way to start, and after that you can do many things, fantastic things.
I think what your organisation has done is become like a really good role model for the UK.
Yeah, but you are on your way. You're very much on your way, and I'm very glad to see and hear what I heard today. So many fantastic presentations.
Yeah, definitely.
I was very, very satisfied with them, and I thought, wow, what will the audience think? I mean, here are people that are not saying anything about little green men or flying saucers, or even hinting that they believe in some things like that, but they are really researchers.
At the very beginning of your talk, Saab Viggen chasing a red ball of light.
Oh yes, that's right.
Do you have many cases like that in Sweden?
I wouldn't say many.
I have a comparative case here in the UK.
Okay.
One that I know of because I worked on it myself in Liverpool, which was in 1998, I think it was. But it was a gentleman in an area called New Ferry, and he was a telecommunications engineer. And in the evening, he was having a cigarette break at home. So he was out in the back garden, and he saw in the late evening a red ball of light going across the sky, traversing the sky, and then he saw 2 jet aircraft chasing after it, which he described them as tornadoes because he had experience in identifying military aircraft.
Yeah.
And he said there were Panevia tornadoes. And then they tried to bracket the red light, and they went up into the clouds with their afterburners, and then disappeared. And some minutes later, a larger military aircraft came with a large radar dome on the top, and that traversed the sky, and that was the last the gentleman saw of that aircraft. And I thought my interpretation was, well, it's a military experiment, it's some new gadget, remote controlled gadget, and they're just doing a military exercise, because I hadn't come across similar cases like that at the time.
I'm not sure about how long the standby time is for the AVAX radar aircraft. It should be not minutes, I presume, but maybe hours.
Right.
And not just sitting there waiting it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So they appearing that fast after the observation looks like they were already up there, and maybe the chase had been going on for quite a while.
And that makes it very interesting.
Yeah. So it tells something about it. But in the Swedish case, it was 2 aircraft. Viggen as well. I only showed a picture of one, but it was 2.
Right.
And they were chasing this red ball of light over a small city. And the people were hearing this. They went outside and they saw the aircraft coming with this red ball of light, outmaneuvering them, and they were trying to go back and find it again. And it went on for maybe 15 minutes. And I tried to find which Air Force wing and from where they were flying. No one in the whole of Sweden had any aircraft in the air at that time.
Wow.
So, well...
See, that sends tingles down my spine listening to that.
Yeah, they were there. I have several witnesses seeing this happening, and several hearing this happening.
And what are your ideas about that then? What do you think they were chasing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm so into finding explanations that I'm very, very bad at finding guesses.
You need to be exact.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can say this is a very interesting case, but I'm more interested in cases where I also find the pilot.
Yes.
That's better.
And then you've got added testimony to the investigation.
Yeah.
See, it brings me around then to the question, are we chasing ghosts? Because, quite rightly, the term ghost rocket implies a solid object. Yeah. It's there. Yeah. It's chasing an airplane, or it's just in the sky. And then it gives it interacts with the water when it lands in the lake. Big splash, bubbles, and then it can't be found.
It's a ghost making some noise at least.
When does a ghost do that, though?
Well, pumps going on in the night,